jiggle, 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 jiggle. Hi there.
Hello.
How has your stream been so far? It sounded like it's been a lot of fun.
It has been. You're on Discord. Are you sure that your microphone is the right one?
Is it? Oh my god, is it going through the wrong one?
It's doing the thing where Discord's like, did you want to switch your device? And the answer is always no, but it tries really hard.
Like, oh my god, it was doing that. It's set to the default, but now it should be my proper microphone.
Yep, it sounds like it's going correctly now. I hate that Discord does that. Every single time I open up my computer, it's telling me, "Hey, did you want to change?" No. No, Discord. I never want to change my audio inputs. I never want to. Please stop asking.
Like literally every time I turn on my headphones, it does that.
Yup.
Right. Enable visibility. Now activate. I love the PNG Discord reactive Fugi tech. That stuff's amazing.
Oh yeah, it's super helpful. Let me go ahead.
Finally.
Where do I have? There's reactives. I can go ahead and pull that down to there. Yeah, let's have it like there. That'd be fine.
There, that fits a lot better. Now we can actually see you on stream.
No, never see me. It's illegal to do that.
Oh, too late. We're breaking the law.
Oh well, I guess we're dead then.
Fun.
But we are live on both my stream and your stream, so hi.
Hi. So we're ready to jump right into it. Pretty much the reason I wanted to talk with you is because I value your perspectives about, politics in general. And I've been seeing a lack of real political commentary on the VTuber spaces specifically. You have touched a bit on it somewhat, and I'm not here to say, hey, you should be talking about this more. I was wondering if you would be willing to share some of your insights about dealing with such kinds of thinking within spaces that don't quite have enough progressive voices.
So there's a couple of observations I've had since doing the VTuber thing, and I've been doing it about 2 years now. Really quick bit of history for that. I did start VTubing as a joke, 100%, because I wanted to troll my audience, and then I ended up getting sucked down the rabbit hole of the Vtuber community after that fact, and then just went, oh, I guess we're here now. But a couple things that I have observed. One, VTubing as we know it, the very like anime character-based VTubing, a lot of it's based off of corporations. So things that corporations like Nijisanji, Hololive, corporations like that, things that are considered standard for those corporations are what people who are fans of VTubing tend to emulate. The indie VTuber scene as it exists because corporate VTubing is a thing, largely. Like they popularized it, and now we have what we have right now. We could do the meme thing of like the first VTuber was the annoying orange, or we could just accept that the first modern day VTuber we understand, like as we understand VTubing, was like Kitsune AI.
Yes, I did cover that actually before we talked. The first one to coin the term was Kizuna, but there was precursors to VTubers before her.
Yep. That's why I specifically am like as we now understand them to be. So because that standard was already set there by corporations of like, hey, let's have a very clean look, let's have very clean characters, but with a little bit of edge. Character Gargura, the way that Gargura is allowed to present on her stream is very much like this character is innocent with edge. Very you can get further down that rabbit hole if you want to go into like people like Nyanners, where absurdism and edge are way dialed up for characters like that. But it's always going to be apolitical, quote unquote. And when I say apolitical, I mean things that people are willing to accept in the Overton window. For those who don't know, the Overton window is the range of acceptable ideas between what we usually would consider like a right and left dichotomy. So, like, economically, capitalism would be the thing in the Overton window. That's the thing that's considered acceptable. If you go too far left and you get into socialism or communism, that's outside of the Overton window. If you go too far right and you get into like full-on authoritarianism, then you're outside of the Overton window there as well. So if somebody's saying something like, "Hey, let's bring down an economic system," that's going to be considered a political statement outside of the political norm. Now, there are people like, say, Iron Mouse, who will make comments on the United States medical system and its failures, and that's not considered super political because that's just a thing everybody complains about all the time. And because we're numb to complaining about the US medical system, it's considered an apolitical statement, even though most critiques of the US medical system are going to come from a very, very left-wing economic perspective. So most of it just comes down to the things people are already used to are the things that corporations are willing to work with, things that are within their accepted paradigm. And since the indie VTuber scene largely emulated the idol culture of the corporate VTuber scene, we got a lot of that apoliticality in the indie VTuber scene as well. Now, some of that is starting to change. Not so much in that we have a bunch of political VTubers now. We really don't. There's maybe a handful of us. We used to have like Pixie Explains, who's stopped VTubing. I got into doing, like, I learned how to do my VTubing stuff initially from another political VTuber, Miss Peep, who has largely not really had much time to dedicate to VTubing either. So, like, when it comes to VTubers who cover politics, I feel like I'm in a really awkward spot where I don't know if there's many besides me.
Yeah,
I don't really know.
I would honestly say you are the biggest left wing, or at least I don't actually know where you fall with that. Do you consider yourself leftist?
Oh, I'm a socialist.
Oh,
Like
okay, cool, sweet.
that's the economic theory that I'm most subscribed to. So
Then we're in
that's where that
agreement
would end
there.
up being.
So yeah, then I
Um,
would definitely consider you the biggest left wing VTuber because you're literally the biggest one that I know of that actually actively talks about politics.
and like I know that there's other VTubers who will talk about political issues. So like my friend Nova will talk about political issues. I know that another friend of mine, Monica, will talk about politics every now and again on her stream. But largely, the vibe in most VTubing spheres, even when you can talk about politics in them, the vibe is mostly going to be gaming and let's chat, let's do React videos and stuff. Because again, that's what corporate VTubing does. And the indie scene emulates the corporate scene to at least a degree with some deviation. And I know from, I can't say the corporation, nor can I say the VTuber, but a person who is friends with someone who I am very close to did end up going from the indie scene into the corporate scene and has actually like started feeling agitated that they are not able to talk about things that are happening in America right now. A lot of the anti-trans legislation, stuff like that. They're not really able to talk about it because their corporation will not let them. Which is no different, mind you. It's no different than a corporation saying that, hey, don't talk about religion or politics as a cashier, right? It's the same idea. I can understand why they do it. I guess the reason is a little different for me for VTubers, though, is that with VTubers, you're not just selling people on your brand. People aren't just watching HoloLive because it's HoloLive. They're watching HoloLive a lot of times because they go, oh, I want to watch Gura. So they're going to go watch HoloLive, but their favorite VTuber in there might be Gura. And so they're going to end up watching a lot of Gura, and they may watch the other HoloLive streamers as well, but that's going to be their fixation. That's going to be where they're at. Or like when Coco was a VTuber still as well. You may go for the corpo, but a lot of people will still stay there for Coco, and that's why so many people were sad when Coco left. graduated. Um, so I do know that corporations do limit the things that VTubers can talk about when they're not an indie VTuber. And a lot of VTubers have to kind of make that decision if a corpo does reach out to them. Do you want to sacrifice that part of your identity, basically, that ability to speak about whatever you want, so that you can get the paycheck that the corporation will give you? And I can understand taking the position of wanting to be hired by the larger company, because I'm not going to get super mad at anybody for trying to go look for financial stability. It's very hard to come by these days.
Oh
Um,
yeah,
but
especially in the world of VTubing.
oh yeah, fun stats for anybody who wants to be sobered about their streaming career. The top 5% of Twitch streamers have 5 concurrent views. You just need 5 concurrent viewers to be in the top 5% of Twitch streamers. You need 25 concurrent viewers to be in the top 1% of Twitch streamers. You don't receive Twitch partner status until you have consistently been, and by consistently for me, it was for 4 months, until you've consistently been at 75 viewers. So you have to be in the top percentage of percentages in order to start earning what's even close to considered a living wage on Twitch as a platform. So again, that's why I can't really fault anybody for going, hey, I'm going to take this decision that's going to allow me to do the thing I want to do and make enough money to live. Making enough money to live on streaming is incredibly fucking difficult. And it's sobering to look at those numbers, but it is a reality that we have to contend with.
Yeah, like it was honestly a shock to me when I got an email from Twitch saying that I was actually in the top 5% of just chatting streamers for the year of 2022. And that was
Yep.
just because I interviewed other VTubers and people like tuned in. I wasn't able to get anywhere near partner, but still, it's amazing that somebody as small as me was able to get into the top 5. It's just that there are, from what I've heard, there's like 160,000 VTubers. There's over a million streamers out there in total.
Mm-hmm.
And like so many just expect that it can be a instant platform to success. It's not always.
It's the sharpshooter fallacy. They
Mhm.
see the hits and they ignore the misses. Because when you're looking at everybody who's ever done streaming, you never see all of the streamers that have 0 viewers. The streamers who have nobody watching them and they're just playing their game and either hoping that somebody gets there or just not caring whether somebody hops in, and they're just streaming. And then you're also not seeing all the people who are desperate to grow that audience and start doing things that sabotage their own career because they want that audience. There's some behaviors that you'll see from streamers where, like, they'll do a stream, they'll get only a handful of viewers for a while, or their viewers will dip because they changed games or something, and then they get really, really depressed and hop off stream and then talk about it on social media afterwards. And there's a fine line between being able to be sad, like publicly sad, mind you. All emotions are valid, but public displays of sadness. There's a fine line between being sad about low viewership and guilt tripping your viewers into engaging more with you. And if you start if your viewers start feeling more like they're guilt tripped into being there, you can see how this becomes a bit self-destructive. You get sad and do the behavior because you're not getting the views, and then by not getting the views, the behavior you do ends up making it to where you get even fewer views, and it's a vicious cycle. And it's a cycle that's super easy to fall into because we hop on social media and we complain. It's what we do. And it's a thing that everybody is valid in doing, but it can come to bite you in the ass if you complain about certain things. And that's just kind of the reality of being a streamer. We kind of live and die by the actions we take publicly.
Yeah, yeah, that's just the nature of being a public figure, and that's part of being a streamer.
Yep.
There are like so many people will fall into that cycle because they see a lot of the people that they're interacting with gaining some success or perceived uh, success on Twitter, but then it doesn't correlate or it doesn't transfer over to their actual content that they're going to. Like they're trying to
Oh yeah.
promote streams, they might get a lot of clicks on the they might get a lot of likes on the going live, but it might not be a lot of people jumping from the going live tweet into your stream. That's something you really got to work on, and that um, if you're playing falling into the uh, vague tweeting about sadness and I need more viewers kind of thing, that's
Yep.
not going to get people going to into your streams.
I have seen people on Twitch with over 10,000 followers and a concurrent viewership of 6, 7, 8. I have seen people. I have friends who have over 50,000 followers on Twitch and are still struggling to push for partner. Numbers do not always line up the way you think they will. Subscribers on YouTube doesn't mean you get views. Followers on Twitch doesn't mean you get views. And followers on Twitter doesn't mean that you get the engagement that that follower amount should represent. That's a normal thing that happens. And it's again, it's one of those sobering things. Like it's a landmine you have to think about when you're looking at, say you're looking at your favorite VTuber and you go, hey, I want to be like them. Look at all these cool numbers they have. Boy, they could do anything and it would always pop off. But then if you ever get to know the person, you might find that they're actually going, no, things aren't easy. This post isn't getting the engagement it's supposed to. I'm not getting the viewers I'm supposed to at X, Y, or Z venue. Like, you never know the things that are happening behind those scenes. Or you might not know that there are some VTubers who have really, really strong followings on Twitch and have nothing outside of that. So they literally rely in almost a paycheck to paycheck sense on every stream being a banger. If they have a stream that doesn't perform super well, and at a certain amount, at a certain like threshold, a stream not performing super well may look by comparison like your dream stream. Um, if you're a streamer who's used to having 300 concurrent viewers, a stream getting 80 viewers is a bomb. But if you're somebody who's starting out on Twitch, 80 viewers is what you need to get partner. It looks like a dream for you, but for the other streamer, 80 viewers might just mean that they have their lurkers that don't engage and they might make no money off of that stream. And if that's their only source of revenue, they don't have Patreon, they don't have YouTube, they don't have anything else, like, that can be a crippling thing of anxiety for them to deal with. And then now they've got to try to not fall into that cycle of talking negatively about the stream and potentially even guilt tripping their chat, because you can end up destroying the community that's starting to suffer numbers wise when you do that.
Not only destroy the community and push people away from presenting that kind of behavior, you can also accidentally push people into a sort of toxic parasocial relationship where they feel they need to provide for you.
A fun experience I had with something like this, and it's not related to streaming. It was back when I played a lot of World of Warcraft as a kid. I recognized a cycle that was happening in my guild, and it was that we would have people hop in. They'd be level 60. This is back in vanilla. They would be level 60. They would want to start raiding. And back then, raiding required you to have 40 people online and ready to go, which meant you needed like 100 raiders to deal with scheduling conflicts. So we would get, like, say we would have 30 people, all level 60, all ready to raid, and then one person would leave. That's not just, hey, we lost a guild member now. That's, we're one step behind now in being able to raid again. And then when they would give the complaint, like, hey, I'm leaving because I want to go raid, and I can't raid in this guild because this guild doesn't have enough people to raid with, it created that cycle of, like, can't get the guild to raid because we don't have enough people, and we don't have enough people because we can't get the guild to raid. I was 13 years old. I made the mistake of, like, complaining to people who would leave the guild, like as if they had betrayed the guild or some shit, because I was a dumb 13-year-old, right? Like, I wanted to raid as well. I wanted to do the end game content, And I was like, hey, we could all get there together, but if you're not part of it, then we'll never get there. It's the same thing with a streamer. You can have that really, really unhealthy, hey, I'm invested in the streamer's success, and if you're not invested in the streamer's success, then you're part of the problem. Like, no, no streamer of any color is owed an audience. You're never owed an audience. You are never owed a particular amount of money from that audience. You are never owed a particular amount of engagement from that audience. Anything that audience is willing to give you in monetary or viewership number form is a gift from that audience to you. And the minute you forget that that's the relationship you have, that audience goes away.
Yeah, that's something that is super important to keep in mind.
But it was when you mentioned that parasocial thing, I'm like, oh, yeah, no, I did this thing back when I was a kid.
Yeah,
Um,
we've all made dumb mistakes when we were teenagers. I mean, who doesn't cringe at the thought of them as a teenager when they're an adult?
yeah, it's true, but it's how we learn. Um, but you did mention on like VTubers who do or don't talk about politics. So a thing that
Yes.
I've learned to do, because there is that expectation of apoliticality in the VTuber sphere, is whenever I raid a VTuber, if it's new, I'll raid the VTuber and I will not mention that I talk about politics. I simply won't do it because I know if I do, my audience may think that that's, or sometimes they'll do like, hey, this is my moment where I can talk about politics and the other streamers stream. Like, no,
Oh, yeah.
most streamers don't want to bring that into their stream because talking about politics necessarily brings a lot of negativity, a lot of polarity. It's not a thing most people want to deal with. Don't bring it into another streamer's stream, no matter how invested you are, unless that streamer goes like, hey, it's an okay thing to talk about. Um, and since I mostly raid VTubers on Twitch, because most of the political streamers that I'm affiliated with, they all run on Whiteleaf websites. So like Vosh and Xander Hall and Demon Mama, Shark Zero, like all of them use Whiteleaf websites. And so when we do end up streaming at the same time, me raiding on Twitch doesn't do a whole lot because their viewership is on a website. So
Wait, White Leaf website?
so there is a creator of websites and infrastructure named White Nervosa, and White Nervosa is the one who works on Xander Hall's, Luxander's, Vosh's, Demon
Yeah.
Mama's. All of their websites are ran by the same person, and it's under the brand name Whiteleaf.
Oh, okay. I knew White Nervosa had done some, at least, tech work for Vosh. I had heard of that, but
Yeah,
I didn't know exactly how they ran their sites or the background knowledge of that. Thank you for that.
yeah,
But
that's
yeah.
what I used to have a Whiteleaf site too, and then I realized that like because of my position as a VTuber, I'm thoroughly integrated into the Twitch ecosystem. So starting that ecosystem over on a standalone Whiteleaf site didn't make any sense because VTubers raiding each other is one of the ways a lot of us grow. And that culture doesn't exist when your streaming is done on a bespoke site.
Um, wasn't there a thing that YouTube was adding that is like rating, but it's only for partners?
They do have one, but I mean, you gotta remember, being a partner on YouTube just means that you have 1,000 subs and you've had 4,000 watch hours. If you're streaming on YouTube, 4,000 watch hours comes really, really fast. But no, that system is garbage.
Oh,
It
okay.
exists.
I
It
I
exists, and it's functionally worthless.
Yeah, I personally have the majority of my chat is on Twitch, but I've been trying to build my YouTube up. So I've been looking into different options. But I
Fair.
did, yeah, want to talk on there's a fair amount of commentators. I'm not here to point names and start beef on somebody else's stream, but there's a fair amount of commentators that push the idea of you shouldn't talk politics at all, and in reality a lot of their content is just talking political prescriptions of the VTuber community, and they just
Yeah,
don't really address that. They say basically anything progressive is political.
well, that's why I talked about the Overton window first.
Mhm.
Like, there's an acceptable Overton window of stuff you can talk about in the VTuber community. Like you can talk about medical issues. Sometimes you can talk about trans issues because there's actually a lot of trans VTubers.
Turns out,
Um,
yeah.
yeah, it turns out a ability to, without dealing with the US's crappy medical system, have the body that you want and then present the way you want would be very attractive to a lot of trans people. Funny that. um,
Yeah.
but but just so because of that, there are a lot of trans people who are at least moving that bit of the Overton window there because there's just, again, there's a lot more trans people in the VTuber community than there are in a lot of other streaming communities because of the nature of how VTubing works. But there are a lot of things that are just considered outside of the realm of what you can talk about in VTuber communities largely. Like if you talk about gun reform in VTuber communities, you're going to get fights. You're just going to get fights because there is no consensus Overton window on
Yeah.
that at all in that particular community. Um, and it does kind of, what was it? There was one person, VTuber, who made a post on Twitter, and again, not gonna name names of the person. I did a video on them. If you really want to go into a backlog of 1,600 videos to go find that, that is your hyperfixation, not mine. But there was a VTuber who made comments on Twitch about how no VTuber should talk about politics, and they got lambasted. It's a weird paradox. It's expected in the VTuber community that you don't talk about politics, but when you talk about not talking about politics, the indie VTuber community will actually lambast you. It's a weird dichotomy. Both of these things exist simultaneously, and I don't know how to square it. It's like the community's perfectly fine talking about politics, but then when it comes to actually talking about politics, it won't happen that much. But like this VTuber, when they said that like, hey, VTubers shouldn't talk about politics, it only screws up their careers, like they got lambasted not only by me, but by people as big as Takahata 101. All got in on going like, this person is really, they don't know what they're talking about. Takahata's critique of them was literally, hey, I don't think any VTubers should be taking career advice from somebody whose numbers show that VTubing isn't even their career.
Ouch. Wow.
And the person actually, like, I don't know if they were a fan of Taka or what, but they actually did say like this was one of the first bits of good advice I saw in this thread. And I'm like, yeah, because I've got to be honest, if somebody tells me how to do my job and they've never done my job, I'm just going to ignore them. Or a recent thing that happened, my friend Vivi Chan, she's a VTuber who will openly talk about politics. She's had me on her channel multiple times. She actually recently was on Takahata 101 stream as well, speaking of Taka.
Nice.
But Vivi recently made a comment about feminism on Twitter, and
Wait,
I'm not gonna.
about feminism. I had covered a video that like was a hit piece against her that was her talking just saying that white male privilege exists.
Well, that's what I'm referring to. That's what I'm referring to
Oh, oh, okay. Okay.
because that's literally just like the baseline feminist take. White male
Yeah.
privilege exists.
Yeah.
Um, and Rev Says Desu and a
Mhm.
bunch of other people all ended up making hit pieces on her after that, saying like, "This VTuber's destroyed her career," and yet like I've looked at her streaming numbers since then.
It
They're the
hasn't
same.
changed.
It hasn't changed. Vivi's audience knows what she's about. Vivi's
If
audience, not only that, but like she's still gonna be able to go to things like Off Kai Expo and other areas where she's gonna still be able to do like V2B career stuff. Like none of that's going away. And then I know
yeah.
me and Vivi have a stream planned as well where we're going to actually expound on a lot of the stuff that she was talking about in her thread, just all in video form. Because I was like, hey, you know, it's a really funny way to stick it to a bunch of people who say you shouldn't talk about politics as a VTuber when a bigger VTuber who talks about politics does a collaboration with you. So, um, so like
I am
seeing
looking
that,
forward to hearing that conversation.
like seeing
Yeah.
that
Mhm.
seeing that whole like fallout happen, it was astounding to me because I'm just sitting there like, I do this as a full-time job. And I've done this as a full-time job for a while now. So when people are like, "Hey, you'll destroy your career doing this." No, you won't. You destroy your career when you do it stupidly. You destroy your career when you build an audience that believes one thing and you try to subvert it almost abusively. Like, let's say you build up an audience of really, really progressive people, a lot of LGBTQ and trans people, and then you start talking about how trans panic is a thing that you think is good and good for being legal. Like, you start doing that, you've 180'd your audience, and of course, you've blown up your audience. And there's going to be people who say, like, "Oh, well, you talk about politics that destroyed your audience." No, you violated the trust of an audience, and that's what blew up your audience. You can generate an audience talking about politics. It's done by everyone in some way, shape, or form or another. It just depends on where you sit on the Overton window as to what you consider, quote, politics.
Yeah, literally, politics basically directly or indirectly affects like every aspect of life. You can't avoid it.
Also, somebody in my chat, Psycho Yuffie, said, being called out by Rev Says Desu should be considered a badge of honor. It should be. It
Honestly,
should
it was
be.
for me.
It was awkward for me because I got called out on something by Rev Says Desu and Kyo, and I believe both of them censored my name when it happened. But
Yo.
it was like my audience, they saw the videos and when they saw my Twitter, they're like, "Oh, that was from Suris." So I ended up making video responses to both of them anyway. But yeah,
Yeah, I'm not big enough for Rev to make like a call out video against me, but he did respond to one of my hot takes of a hot take Twitter thread. Didn't censor my name, didn't censor my profile picture. Though I didn't get any backlash from any of his fans from that, so I honestly don't care if he did or didn't.
yeah,
I
fair
just
enough.
I just found it interesting that the first video of his that I covered, he did take the stance of you shouldn't unknowingly, cause harassment by, carelessly showing uh, details of people you're actively disagreeing with. But I don't think
I,
just showing the name of somebody you disagree with is leading to that.
Here's the thing. Hot take. Censoring the profile image and the name of people who you are actively disagreeing with on Twitter or what have you is a useless endeavor. It is completely worthless because the Twitter advanced search feature exists. All somebody has to do is type in the exact phrase that you said, which you would be showing because you are making the hot take video on what they said. All somebody has to do is type in those words into the Twitter advanced search, and they'll find the tweet. They'll find you. The oh, I put a layer of anonymity on this person. No, it doesn't change shit. People can still find you. Um, and
Yeah,
maybe
it's
this
a
is just
virtue
like
signal.
maybe this is just from somebody who has been the target of harassment campaigns before. So I mean, I'm in the middle of one right now because of the video
I
I did
heard
on
of that
Young
one.
Ripa. Um, so maybe I'm just like it just doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. If somebody wants to find you to harass you, they're gonna do it. They're just gonna do it.
Yeah,
Like, people are
unfortunately,
shit.
these kinds of campaigns are more frequent than I would like.
Yeah, yeah.
But I mean, they kind of follow along with the nature of the kind of content that we're putting out.
No, it's Smacker was asking who's Rev Says Desu. Rev Says Desu was a React VTuber. Well, it used to be just React YouTuber, but now does a VTuber model as well. Just reacts to dramas in the anime and VTuber industry. I'll go ahead and say
Yeah,
right now, my opinion of Rev Says Desu is if I needed a dictionary definition of bottom feeder, I would look at Rev.
he's
Rev would
my
be my diction
sorry.
like that. Rev would be my dictionary definition of just a bottom feeder.
Yeah, I'd have to agree. He was the main driving force of why I came up with the term V grifter. He loves calling
Fair, fair.
people on Twitter V tweeters as if their advocacy doesn't go any farther than on Twitter. and then I'm calling him a grifter because he pushes the don't do the politics, go woke, go broke stuff, and then
Uh,
his stuff is
yeah,
only political.
I've seen so like I saw with Monica and Vivi, both of them, when harassment campaigns went against both of them, they both had the term VTweeter labeled at them as if they don't have their own streams with their own audiences that are all established. Just yeah. It feels like people who don't want to do even an ounce of research and they're just looking for the knee-jerk reaction. Like for instance, when I did my Young Rippa video, one of the accusations that was levied at me by him and his fans was, "Hey, this person doesn't stand by his opinions. He's hiding behind a cartoon," ignoring all of the times where I show my face, which are really easy to find if you just do an ounce of research. But nobody wants to do that ounce of research. They just want the knee-jerk reaction, so they go for it.
Yeah, it's like they just follow along with the headlines and don't actually read the articles.
It's a pretty normal thing, unfortunately.
Yeah, it's not VTuber specific.
Nope, 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 nope. But that doesn't beg the question, did you have any other topics or questions you wanted to get into?
I was wanting to bring up how are ways that we could potentially reach across the aisle, so to speak, to try and find topics we can agree with them or agree with, the more right winger people, so we can at least appear to be willing to work with them. The two main subjects that I'm thinking of are how they seem to agree with us that parasocial relationships can be very toxic if left unchecked, as well as VTuber agencies can be quite exploitative of their talents. So perhaps we could use those agencies as a way to, or like a wedge issue to potentially push worker cooperatives among VTubers.
So the idea of getting a Hololive union type of deal set up, it would require a couple of things. It would require all of Hololive to be simultaneously willing to fire all of their talent all at once. And it would also require all of their talent to be willing to band together to do that. Creating a union is a notoriously hard thing to do, especially when we're talking about a VTuber agency where the talent is, as far as I know, we don't have full numbers on this, but as far as I know, the talent for VTuber agencies are very well paid for what they do. So it's very hard to convince them that like, hey, you need protection, because they go like, oh, they'll never replace me. Nothing bad's going to happen to me. And then, the graduation happens in a month.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have any confirmed sources on this, but apparently 75 VTubers have graduated from Niji Sanji globally, so that's kind of concerning given that it's been around for a few years now. That's a lot
Yeah.
of talent. But I wasn't really referring to, hey, let's push to unionize HoloLive, but maybe we can spread the idea of why don't VTuber agent or why don't people push more to make their own VTuber agencies where everybody has a stake in what's said and control of how the organization goes as a whole.
So it would be very hard to sell a lot of people on that as the solution because that already exists. There's a lot of indie VTuber agencies that have popped up in the last 2 years that do recruitment for small talent, usually like streamers who are in the 8 to 10 range, um, end up getting into these very, very smaller indie. Uh, they emulate corpos, but they're not corpos in the same way. So
Like
like
the underground corpo scene, I guess.
basically, so like that it would be very hard to sell that as the solution to that issue to right wingers because that already exists and has shown to not do anything to the Niji Sanjis, the Hololives of the world. So, like, I would like to agree that that would be a way to push that if that didn't already exist. And we've already seen
Hmm.
that a lot of times those organizations will build up, get a lot of steam, and then fall apart either because there's some internal conflict. And one of the things you do in a corporation is you set up redundancy. If we lose half of our management staff, there's a way that a corporate reshuffle happens that they're still able to function. But if you lose half of your indie management staff, you've probably lost 2 out of 4 people. That may be you losing the head artist and also the only artist. Like, it's very, very hard to weather that when you have fewer people, and you can't set up those kind of redundancies. Also, Victor Martinez, graduation in VTubing just means getting fired or leaving your job. That's all it is. It is the nice way of saying the VTuber is no longer working with the agency, which is the equivalent of getting fired and leaving your job.
Yeah,
There are a lot of,
that's the corpo definition, but indie does also use it for like when they're no longer being a VTuber, they're switching to doing face cam streaming, or they're just leaving streaming it altogether and not doing anything.
yeah. A lot of the problems with VTuber culture come down to the fact that VTubing is based in idol culture, and idol culture is exploitative. Like, there's no ifs,
Hmm.
ands, or buts. It's just exploitative music industry that builds a persona for you to perform as, and then when you're no longer useful, the persona can either be swapped to another person or destroyed, and a new persona can be created. It's very hard to divorce corporate VTubing from that idol culture, and it's very hard to divorce indie VTubing from that idol culture. I think that's one of the reasons we run into problems with people like Rev and other creators who do the whole like, hey, VTubers shouldn't talk about politics, because they're looking at it through that idol culture lens instead of looking at it through the lens of this is just a way to stream. It's one of the avenues to stream. Not everybody needs to engage in the idol culture bullshit.
Yeah, I've just been trying to find different ways to push more progressive thinking towards these fans and be able to reach them in new ways.
So I'm going to be honest. The easiest way to do that is not going to be with any grand strategy of like
Hmm.
how to reshape the VTuber industry, because VTuber fans are fans of VTubing as it exists now.
Yeah.
Massive reformations in the industry will only make them not want to engage. What you can push them on, though, what you can do is you can
Mhm.
make it personal. So it's very easy for somebody to be anti-trans, for instance, until a loved one is trans. It's very easy for someone to be anti-gay until a loved one is gay. The easiest way, the most effective way to get VTuber fans online, like on the side of progressive politics, is to just have more VTubers that are larger, that are representatives of those ideals. So VTubers who are gay and are willing to be vocal about that fact, not just in a like let's Yuri bait for the audience gay, but actual they are gay or bi or pan, and it's a thing that they talk about on their stream. Or if they are trans and they talk about it on their stream and they grow an audience of people who are there. There are people who will be anti-trans, follow a VTuber, enjoy their content, and then by the time they realize they're trans, they have a road ahead of them. They can either continue enjoying the content that they've enjoyed for legitimate reasons for the last year or so, or they can abandon it because the VTuber is trans. And just simply putting that path ahead of them does a world in terms of making them refigure out their position. Just like one of the easiest ways to turn a person in real life to be progressive is to expose them to other people who are representatives of the ideals that they've been told they're not supposed to like. You're not supposed to like gay people, not supposed to like trans people, not supposed to like atheists until your daughter is trans, your best friend is gay, and your mother tells you they've been an atheist for the past 30 years, suddenly your entire world gets rocked. You either abandon your world or you realign your position on your world.
Yeah.
Doing that in the VTuber industry is probably the best way to get those people online. People don't think logically most of the time, they think with their emotions. So make it to where their emotions are having to give them a dilemma between their entertainment.
Yeah, I can definitely agree with that. You need that representation in order to get the support going. The problem is we need to actually get those streamers up there, and it's been pretty hard for a lot of people to make it big because it's a crapshoot. You got to get
It
struck by
is
lightning in order to make it big.
Yeah, it is a crapshoot, and it is a thing that you would think is easier to do in a community that has such high trans representation, just the VTuber community does. Um, but at that point, unfortunately, the easiest thing to, or the best thing to do, would be either trying to get some of those indie platforms to get larger, or having those corporations in their later generations bring on people who were representative of those areas. I'm already going to say, if somebody wants to do the whole like, are you calling for affirmative action? Sure, why not? The first like 4 generations of Hololive are all, OWO girls. It, you can branch out from that. There's nothing wrong with doing that. Um, there's nothing wrong with doing that, especially in like media representation. So just developing those fan bases, having VTuber fans that are exposed to larger VTubers who are representatives of those things, it's one of the best ways to do it, because the alternative is probably impossible. The alternative is having a bunch of larger VTubers risk their careers by talking openly about politics more often in an environment that, like I said, is simultaneously hostile to you talking about politics and then wants to say it's okay for all of us to talk about politics. It's a dice roll that not a lot of larger VTubers with established audiences are going to want to do, especially if they're contractually bound against it. So alternatively, just having the people that people get attracted to parasocially be representatives of those things instead of talking about them, that's the only way to do that within the framework we have right now. This very corporate idol culture setup that we've got at the moment, I think that's probably the only way we have there, at least within this setup.
Hmm. It does make me wonder if I should and honestly keep the trans flag in like my Twitter bio or Twitter name, because yes, I want to make it perfectly aware that I'm trans, but it is I'm also perfectly aware that it is inherently politicized thanks to the Republican Party, and that can have an effect on who will actually click on me and listen to what I have to say.
So it's a catch 22.
It
There
is.
are people who will there are people who are already progressive who may look at the trans flag as a sign of inclusivity, and therefore it's a good reason to follow you from the beginning. It's like how when the war in Ukraine began, how Ukraine flags were how a lot of political divides happened. People with Ukraine flags in their bio became targets of establishment people who decided they wanted to suck Russia's teat that day. And then people who were advocates for supporting Ukraine were identified just by having the flag. So there is that filter effect that it can have, but I think it might not matter either way personally. I think when you're in the indie scene, your growth is going to be organic, whether it's people realizing you're trans hopping in your stream or not. Not to mention, if your growth is happening on Twitch, for instance, a lot of people are going to discover your Twitter after your Twitch. They're going to find you because of the Twitch algorithm, and then they may they may think you're trans or they may not think you're trans, but either way, if they go to your Twitter, they'll find out. But I don't think it's going to change much either way. If somebody starts developing a fanship for you, that's going to be there irrespective of that. I don't I don't think in the indie scene, with how spread out and disparate everything is here, that it will make a difference either way. People are going to find you organically one way or the other.
Yeah, I have found with pushing more on making the YouTube content, I'm getting growth there separate from the Twitter. I'm getting Twitter for my tweets and not really crossing the gap between those two platforms. I
Yeah,
get
people
some.
are willing people are willing to move from stream to stream or video to stream, but like Twitter to stream, there's a different audience, right? So like on
Hmm.
YouTube, People are watching content, spending time watching content, and then when they're out of content, they look for more content. And if you're live, suddenly there's more content. On Twitter, people are looking for flash in the pan engagement and then putting their phone away. They're not they're not going to be jumping from Twitter to your stream as fast because the platforms serve two different mental states. Not that they
Yeah.
serve different people. People who are on Twitter and Twitch and YouTube are all they're the same guy usually, typically, but that same guy is on Twitter for one experience and on YouTube for another. And the Twitch experience happens to mirror or sometimes supplement the YouTube experience. The Twitter experience is its own hellscape that exists as an amalgam of DeviantArt and 4chan.
Yeah, I can see that. But yeah, I think that covers basically all the different topics I were really wanting to bring up with you.
Okay.
I
Then
don't suppose you have any other thoughts you'd like to share?
um I guess there's a big one that's been on my mind a lot recently. And I've done a video on it before, and I'll go ahead and repeat it here. If you if you want to be a streamer of any variety, and you are sitting here contemplating, trying to figure out if you want to be a streamer, that's the thing that you're rolling over in the grave. What am I going to do? What am I going to talk about? What am I going to? Shut up. Stop listening to the voice in your head that's telling you all the different ways you could do this or it could mess up. Just do it. Do it and fail. And when you fail, learn from that failure and then do it again. And then do it again. And then do it again. It's that way with any skill you ever could possibly do. Any skill at all. Said have money first. No, I disagree with that one too. You can use a shitty webcam, a $20 microphone, and a PNG you drew in chalk and poo poo, and that be your PNG tuber avatar, and you can start that way. Like
Yep.
you don't need a lot of money to start.
I started as a PNG tuber using a pick crew. Well, no, I was a flesh tuber, then a PNG tuber, then I made a free 3D one. Honestly, I haven't spent money on my VTuber yet.
Hey, there you go.
Exactly.
Like just do it and do it freely. If I were to recommend
Mhm.
a wonderful guide to starting doing VTubing while having it be super cost effective or even free, if you've never watched the VTuber Fofamit goes into basically just the top to bottom of here's how you make all the software work for you. And here's how you do all this for free. Here's how you develop an avatar for free. Here's how you build an environment in Unity for free. Here's how you do like all the little things that go into VTubing besides just turning on OBS and hitting the record button. Fofamit pretty much breaks down all of that on her channel really, really well.
That is good to know. Definitely want more people to check that out because I personally want to see more content creators. I like consuming content.
Oh, and there you go. And like I do want to reiterate when I said like try the thing and fail, that may sound disheartening. Everybody who's ever succeeded at anything has done this.
Yeah.
Everyone. They have all failed at something multiple times. We started out this stream talking about the sharpshooter fallacy and how easy it is to just look at the misses or the hits and forget all the misses. It's the same way with this. It's not just the amount of streamers who failed to get big and you're just looking at the big streamers and looking at them only. You're forgetting all the times that the big streamers have failed.
Yeah, like people see Iron Mouse's success now, but they didn't see the years of stagnation that she struggled with before she made her success.
Yep. And it is that way with every content creator for the most part. People that love Mr. Beast don't see the years that he got almost no views on his channel at all. It's just how things work.
Yep, that's just. I don't really have more to add to that.
Fair enough. Then is there anything you want to say maybe to my audience before we split ways?
Well, there's one sort of personal question. I was curious about you because I did
Sure.
see your video you put out on April 1st. I was just
Okay.
curious how you felt about fan art of the non-safe for work variety.
I have become so numb to it that I'm fine. That's where that's where I sit on it. I have
I okay.
I
I
was I
just
was
I
I
mhm.
was less comfortable with it several years ago, and then certain people in my audience who may or may not be in the chat right now. I'm looking at you, Stoff, because that was all porn from one person. That was all from Stoff. That's all from
In that
one.
in that video?
Yes. Um. So I have become thoroughly desensitized to the levels to which my audience and their artistic skills will stoop. So, uh, I don't care anymore.
Okay, good to know.
Um,
Because like I personally enjoy making such kind of content, but I don't like doing it of people that I don't have the explicit knowledge that they like that kind of content.
fair. I am ambivalent. Do with that what you will.
I shall.
It is asked in my chat real quick. Suris, who is your guest? My guest here, or I'm actually their guest right now. I'm on their stream,
Oh,
but
please, you're platforming me. Thank you, sirs. My name
but
is Mistress Briley.
yep, and I just dropped a link to their Twitch stream in the chat if you want to go ahead and follow them. And I'm saying them because I haven't actually asked pronouns yet. So
Uh, we forgot to establish that. I go by she, her, but I'm not too picky about they theming me.
fair
Oh,
enough.
holy shit. Thank you guys. You really don't you
So
don't
Twitch, I
need
don't
to
use
sub.
Twitch.
I'm just happy that I've been able to have this conversation with you.
Yep. Fair enough. Sarah sent me have a follow. I'm looking at the chat on your end now.
Yeah. Welcome in everybody and thanks for joining. And thank you,
So,
Suris. I've really enjoyed this conversation.
no problem. Thank you for reaching out.
I believe you've got more content you're going to be working on. I've got more content I'm going to be working on.
Yep, I am looking at. I've got one more thing I need to do because I'm covering the Sunny V2 Mr. Beast video that has been making the rounds, and then I will be
Oh,
ending stream
yes.
after that.
I've loosely heard of that. That's going to be fun.
Fair enough. Well, then I will leave you to the rest of your stream with what seems to be now a lot of people coming to harass you from my audience. So good luck with that. They're all degenerates.
Yay! Perfect. They're going to listen to me talk about Twitter supporters.
There you go. Well, I have
Ah,
enjoyed talking with you, and I will hopefully you have a wonderful rest of your stream.
Same to you. Take care, Suris.
And see ya.
Oh my god. It was so hard to sometimes get myself to start interjecting into the conversation because you forget that you're talking to somebody, and I'm used to listening to him talk. I love that. Great convo. Welcome in, everybody.